I get asked the question very often, how does training differ for somebody who's quite young and new to the sport, somebody who's in their prime, maybe early to mid-20s, and then somebody who is older? Now, when we talk about older, this is a delicate way of expressing it, but as far as I'm concerned, older when it comes to sport is 30 plus. Now, I, as a lifter myself, came out of retirement at the age of 35, and the way that I trained then was very different to how I trained in the earlier parts of my career. So let me just touch on a couple of things, and depending on which category you fall into, would then, I guess, maybe determine how you approach training. Now, a young lifter, new to the sport, doesn't have to be young necessarily, it could just be anybody who's new to the sport. You would expect a rapid increase in improvement. You would expect to go from this level to this level fairly quickly. Over the first few weeks, first few months, performance would increase. Now, that is going to be the same regardless of age. A younger lifter would probably continue to improve for a longer period of time because of maturation and the way the body is developing physically. Those changes physically give more muscle bulk, more coordination, more control, I guess. Well, the better the condition the person, the steeper that and longer that rate of improvement is going to be. Now, a younger lifter, let's talk young as in, let's go sub 18. So if you are younger than 18, a younger lifter doesn't really need a huge amount of structure. They will improve just because their bodies are developing. That said, if that young lifter has been training for a couple of years, then structure is necessary to continue that rate of improvement. The number of sessions that a young lifter could cope with is probably almost certainly going to be far more than an older lifter, 30 plus. So a younger lifter, you could be setting 4, 5, 6 sessions a week, and they probably bounce from one to the other, don't need to warm up, get the session done quite quickly and get out of the gym. That is just common, and I remember when I was that age that I would go on a national training camp and I would be in the gym same time as all the more mature lifters, and I wouldn't warm up, and I'd pretty much be done with my session by the time the older lifters had finished warming up. And it was a bit of a strange concept at the time, but as a young lifter I remember thinking, God, these older ones, they're a bit slow getting going. It's only when I found myself on the other side of it that I had a better appreciation. So, the younger lifters, my advice is just take a little bit more time warming up. Even though you feel you don't need to, it's necessary to make sure the body is conditioned and ready to go. On the flip side, make sure you're spending a little bit more time cooling down than you probably do. My cool down was non-existent. Finished the last set of squats, boots off, and out I would go. But actually, had I spent a little bit more time stretching and doing the things that the older lifters were doing, I might have had less injuries throughout my career. So, let's look now at a more trained athlete, somebody between the ages of say 18 and late 20s, coming up to 30. That kind of bracket is when an athlete is generally at their peak, somewhere in that range. For me, I hit my peak, I think, when I was 26 years of age. It was all downhill after that. But an athlete that is in their prime will need structure to their training in order to maintain a steady rate of improvement. Recovery starts to become more of an issue, and factoring that into a program is important. An athlete in their prime should be able to train 5 or 6 days a week, and in some cases multiple sessions, and a trained athlete will find that they can recover from that as well. Let's compare that to an older, a more mature athlete, and I can speak from experience having done this. Coming out of retirement at the age of 35, I was no longer able to train in the same way that I had when I was young, or even just a few years before. At best, I was training 8 to 12 sessions per week over either 5 or 6 days. When I came out of retirement, flip that on its head, I was training 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It was a day on, day off, day on, day off, day on, 2 days off. And it was like that because I physically couldn't recover. My body was sore, it was stiff, I was just struggling. And when I tried to up my training, I then picked up niggles. So, as a more mature athlete, I had to readdress things and think more intelligently. I had to train more intelligently. I had to listen to my body. And this is when, for the first time ever, that I understood that more is not always better. Maybe if I'd have trained less sessions when I was at my best, I might have recovered even better. But I felt at the time like I had to do more. I had to train day in, day out. That is not true. And when I came out of retirement at the age of 35, I managed to get my fitness pretty much back where it was. I actually broke my own British snatch record that I'd set 12 years previously, and set a Commonwealth Games snatch record. Those things don't just happen. That happened because of a good technical foundation that you don't forget, the muscle memory's there. The fact I'd already been to this level meant I could get back pretty much to that level a whole lot quicker than I had got there in the first place. But suddenly the emphasis became more about recovery. So once I finished training, I spent time stretching. I spent time doing the ice bath. I spent much more focus and attention on my nutrition. And it was a combination of all of those factors that enabled me to recover so I could train again. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is, depending where you are on the age line, you need to think about how often you're pushing your body. Are you recovering? I don't want you to do just one session in the week and do nothing for the rest of the week. You don't have any progression then. We'll look at super compensation in another vlog, but right now, I want you to understand that 2 or 3 sessions ideally, if you can be hitting those in your more mature years, factoring in recovery, spending a little bit longer doing the warm-up and mobilization, and more importantly, after training, spending some time on stretching, then you're likely to see continued improvement. More is not always best.